saw the student in the mirror smiling at me, so I smiled even more. The man in the mirror smiled even more. In a few seconds, we ended up laughing at each other. I continued that practice every morning for 2 years. Every morning, no matter how I felt when I got out of bed, I was soon laughing at myself in the mirror, usually with the help of my 2 fingers. People say I smile a lot these days. Perhaps the muscles around my mouth got kind of stuck in that position. We can try the 2-finger trick any time of the day. It is especially useful when we feel sick, fed up, or downright depressed. Laughter has been proved to release endorphins into our bloodstream, which strengthens our immune system and makes us feel happy. It helps us see the 998 good bricks in our wall, not only the 2 bad bricks. And laughter makes us look beautiful. That's why I sometimes call our Perth Buddhist temple Ajahn Brahm's beauty salon. Priceless teachings. I was told that depression has spawned a multi-billion-dollar industry. That is really depressing. It doesn't seem right to grow rich from other people's suffering. In our austere tradition, the monks are not allowed to have money, and we never charge for the talks we give, for counselling, or for any other services. An American woman rang up a fellow monk, a renowned teacher of meditation, to inquire about learning how to meditate. "I hear you teach meditation," she drawled over the phone. "Yes, madam, I do," he politely replied. "How much do you charge?" she asked, getting to the point. "Nothing, madam." "Then you can't be any good," she replied, and she hung up the phone. I received a similar phone call a few years ago from a Polish-Australian woman. "Is there a talk at your centre this evening?" she inquired. "Yes, madam. It starts at 8 p.m, I told her. "How much do you have to pay?" she asked. "Nothing, madam. It's free," I explained. Then there was a pause. "You haven't understood me," she said forcefully. "How much money do I have to give you to listen to the talk?" "Madam, you don't have to give any money. It's free," I said as soothingly as I could. "Listen!" she shouted at me down the line. "Dollars, cents! How much must I cough up to get in?" "Madam, you don't have to cough up anything. You just walk in, sit at the back and leave whenever you like. No one will ask you for your name or address, you won't be handed any leaflets, and you won't be asked for any donation at the door. It's completely free." There was a long pause now. Then she asked, sincerely wanting to know, "Well, what do you guys get out of this then?" "Happiness, madam," I answered. "Happiness." These days, when anyone asks how much these teachings cost, I never say they are free. I say they are priceless. This too will pass. One of the most priceless of teachings that helps with depression is also one of the simplest. But teachings that seem simple are easy to misunderstand. Only when we are finally free from depression can we claim to have truly understood the following story. The new prisoner was afraid and very depressed. The stone walls of his cell soaked up any warmth. The hard iron bars sneered at all compassion. The jarring collision of steel as many gates closed locked hope beyond reach. His heart sank as low as his sentence stretched long. On the wall, by the head of his cot, he saw, scratched in the stone, the following words: "This too will pass." These words pulled him through, as they must have supported the prisoner before him. No matter how hard it got, he would look at the inscription and remember, "This too will pass." On the day he was released, he knew the truth of those words. His time was completed. Jail, too, had passed. As he regained his life, he often thought about that message, writing it on bits of paper to leave by his bedside, in his car and at work. Even when times were bad, he never got depressed. He simply remembered, "This too will pass," and struggled on through. The bad times never seemed to last all that long. Then, when good times came, he enjoyed them, but never too carelessly. Again he remembered, this too will pass, and so carried on working at his life, taking nothing for granted. The good times always seemed to last uncommonly long. Even when he got cancer, this too will pass gave him hope. Hope gave him strength and the positive attitude that beat the disease. One day the specialist confirmed that the cancer too had passed. At the end of his days, on his deathbed, he whispered to his loved ones, "This too will pass," and settled easily into death. His words were his last gift of love to his family and friends. They learned from him that grief too will pass. Author's note. I first heard a version of this ancient story as a young Buddhist in the United Kingdom. It has since been retold and published in brief by Indris Shah in The Way of the Sufi, Penguin Books, Harmondsworth, 1975, pages 80 to 81. Depression is a prison that many of us pass through. This too will pass helps us pull through. It also avoids one of the great causes of depression, which is taking the happy times too much for granted. The Heroic Sacrifice. When I was a schoolteacher, my attention was drawn to the student in my class of 30 who came bottom in the end-of-year exams. I could see that he was depressed as a result of his performance, so I took him aside. I said to him, "Someone has to come 30th in a class of 30. This year it happens to be you who has made the heroic sacrifice so that none of your friends have to suffer the ignominy of being bottom of the class. You are so kind